The storm outside the naval base screamed through the hangars like a living thing, battering metal walls and rattling every window. Inside, the night shift was tense, the air heavy with adrenaline and salt. Floodlights cut through sheets of rain, illuminating the silhouettes of exhausted sailors rushing through the storm. Among them, Lieutenant Mark Callan moved like a man haunted by ghosts. He had just returned from a failed extraction mission in the North Sea, one that had left 2 of his men dead and his trust in leadership shattered. His knuckles were still bloodied from the fight that shouldn't have happened. He had been promised backup that never came. Someone had betrayed his unit and he intended to find out who. So when he stormed into the dimly lit operations corridor and found an unfamiliar figure moving quietly through classified areas, instinct took over. He grabbed her arm, slammed her against the cold steel wall, and pressed his forearm against her shoulder, pinning her in place. His voice, low and ragged, broke the silence. "Who the hell are you and what are you doing here?" For a second, there was only the sound of rain hammering the roof. Then, under the flickering light, she lifted her eyes, calm, piercing, and sharp enough to make his pulse falter. Her uniform caught the light just enough to reveal something that made his stomach drop. The silver insignia on her collar wasn't that of a visitor. It was the unmistakable star of a rear admiral. He froze. His hand trembled. The world seemed to stop spinning. She didn't speak at first. She simply looked at him, not with anger, not even with arrogance, but with something that disarmed him more than rage ever could: quiet authority and sorrow. Slowly, she stepped back as he loosened his grip. His breath caught somewhere between disbelief and shame. That was how Lieutenant Mark Callan met Admiral Evelyn Grace. To the world, she was a living legend, the youngest admiral in the Pacific Fleet, a strategist who had led rescue operations under impossible odds. But to Mark, in that single moment, she was a mirror. He saw in her eyes the same exhaustion he carried, the same buried pain that came from losing people under your command. Word spread quickly through the base, the lieutenant who had pinned the admiral against the wall. But instead of punishing him, Evelyn called for him the next morning. It was supposed to be a disciplinary hearing, but when Mark entered her office, she simply gestured for him to sit. The room was quiet except for the hum of the rain outside. She read his file. His record was near flawless, decorated twice for valor, commended for leadership. But it also told a story of disobedience and trauma, a man fighting invisible wars long after the bullets stopped. When she finally looked up, her voice was calm but carried weight. "You've been through hell, Lieutenant, and hell changes people. But don't ever mistake pain for purpose." That sentence stayed with him. Over the next weeks, instead of a punishment, she gave him a mission, a quiet assignment to assist in training new recruits for a humanitarian rescue division she was secretly building. At first, he resented it. He thought it was a soft job, a way to sideline him. But then he saw what she was building: young soldiers who believed in something more than orders and medals, people who carried hope instead of vengeance. And Evelyn was always there. Calm, patient, precise. She watched him lead, corrected him when he faltered, and challenged him when he let his anger take over. Sometimes she would walk with him along the empty docks at night, her hands behind her back, her voice carrying softly over the wind. "You don't need to carry every ghost, Callan. Some of them need to rest." Slowly, something changed. The walls he'd built around himself began to crack. He started smiling again, just barely at first, but it was real. The nightmares that once tore through his sleep started to fade, replaced by something gentler: purpose. Then came the day everything almost fell apart. A training mission went wrong. A storm hit the coast during an exercise, and one of the new recruits was trapped inside a capsized transport near the breakers. The rescue team couldn't reach him. Without hesitation, Mark jumped into the freezing surf. He dove again and again, lungs burning, the roar of waves pounding in his ears, until strong arms pulled him back. He looked up through the rain and saw Evelyn, drenched to the bone, shouting orders, refusing to leave the shoreline until every soldier was safe. That night, Mark stood outside the infirmary, watching her through the window as she sat beside the injured recruit, holding his hand as he drifted in and out of consciousness. For the first time, Mark understood the weight she carried, the quiet burden of command that never leaves when the mission ends. Days later, she called him to her office again. But this time, her uniform jacket was draped over her chair, her tone softer. Do you know why I didn't report you that night you pinned me against the wall? She asked. Mark said nothing. She smiled faintly. Because I saw myself in you. Years ago, I was the one ready to tear the world apart for answers. I lost people too, and I thought anger would keep me strong. It didn't. Compassion did. He didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat tightened as she looked at him, eyes bright with the kind of strength that comes only from breaking and rebuilding yourself 1,000 times. In the months that followed, Evelyn's program grew, saving lives during typhoons, evacuating civilians from war zones, rebuilding communities scarred by conflict. And Mark became her right hand, a soldier reborn not through battle but through purpose. But fate is rarely kind to those who serve too deeply. During an overseas operation, a cargo helicopter malfunctioned mid-air. Evelyn pushed 2 crew members out just before it went down. When Mark reached the wreckage, it was already too late. All they found of her was her insignia, the same silver star he had once mistaken in the dark. The Navy held a ceremony by the sea. Mark stood among hundreds, his dress uniform soaked in rain. As the flag-draped coffin was lowered, the storm rolled in again as if the heavens themselves were saluting her. And in that moment, the words she once told him echoed through his heart like a prayer. Don't carry every ghost, Callan. Some of them need to rest. He finally understood. Years later, Mark would take her place as commanding officer of the same rescue division she built from the ground up. Her portrait hung in the briefing room, the woman who had turned his fury into faith, his guilt into grace. And every time he walked past it, he whispered the same words. You still command me, Admiral. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the weight of duty, loss, and redemption through their journey, please take a moment to like this video and share it. It helps their story reach more hearts that need its message. Special request to comment. Tell me below, which moment in this story hit you the hardest? Was it when he realized who she was or when she showed him how to live again? Your words keep these stories alive.